Good evening. First of all, I'd like to congratulate all the inductees. You know, I had the privilege of working here and being able to see all those play and see the coaches coach and Coach Schott and Coach Warsh. And actually even got to play with Kippy. Kippy Thomas was a year ahead of me, so I was fortunate enough to be on the same basketball squad and track squad as Kip. He was a 72 graduate. But congratulations to all. You're all so deserving of this honor. It was so great just hearing stories on Jim Neese, the gentle giant we called him, and such a great story from Mr. Coach Martin. I'm here to present my brother Kevin Blanton, a player for me in 1981. You know, my wife and I were talking when we first heard that Kevin was going in the Hall of Fame. She says, I can remember the first time that I came to your house when we were in high school. Kevin was probably the third or fourth grade, and she said he had his headband on, his wristbands on, his basketball jersey on, and he had a Nerf goal at each end of the living room. And she said he was just running back and forth with the tennis ball. And she said, you know, it wasn't just 5 minutes, it would be like 5 hours. And I guess that's how it all began for him with basketball. But you know, when he got up in the fourth and fifth grade, he played for Butlerville Elementary. He always played up a grade when he in the fourth and fifth grade. And then when he got up into the sixth grade, Butlerville didn't have an athletic association that year. So the school decided to hold an activity day on a Saturday. And it just so happened that first activity day coincided with the start of basketball. And so Mr. Marcione, who a lot of you know from Morrow Elementary, came over that day to host the activity day. And of course, it was basketball, and my brother started. Well, he lasted only 1 day because he was then recruited by Morrow Elementary and Coach John Boffman. A lot of you know Coach Boffman, who was coaching the sixth grade at that time. So he went on and had a great year for Morrow Elementary. Came up through junior high, and as a freshman, he started JV. He started as a point guard on the JV squad as a freshman, and as a sophomore, he was back and forth from JV to varsity. He was battling through some injuries. And until the end of the year, he started varsity the last couple of games. But it was about this time I remember saying, well, I'm 6 foot, my dad's 6'1". We're like, hey, you might beat us. You might make it to 6'2". And I guess after saying that, none of you will be asking me to predict any heights in here because 6'2" turned into 6'6". And I could just remember like the next 2 to 3 years that seemed like we were living at the clothing store because we'd buy him a pair of pants and 3 weeks later you'd look down and he's wearing high waters going down the hallway. So we're back at the clothing store. I think for the next 2 years, that's all we did was buy pants for him. He just kept growing. As a junior, he started as a point guard and it was a senior laden squad. He was fortunate enough to earn all FAVC second team that year. So going into his senior year was my first year as coach, and he knew he had his work cut out for him. He was the only returning letterman coming back that year, so he worked really hard in the summer. He was always an extremely hard worker in the off season. But we started the season that year, and he has 33 points his first game. So we go into the second game, a hard-fought game. We win by 2, and he scores 46. And I know, you know, records are made to be broken, but I think that 46 points is still standing today, like 41 years later. But you know, when you score 33 and 46, you know what's coming. Because after that, I don't think we saw a regular defense the rest of the way. I think he was doubled and tripled and any type of jump defenses just to trying to keep him from getting to basketball. But he went on, and we had a great year. He had a great season. He actually played in 19 games. He was out 2 games with injury, but he still had 451 points, which at that time was a record, since been broken. But he ended up averaging 24 points a game right at, and 12.4 rebounds a game. After that, he was voted the most valuable player of the Fort Ancient Valley Conference. He was voted runner-up district player of the year. He was voted top 10 in the state of Ohio, which earned him second team all-state honors. He went on to star at Wilmington College. He was all-conference all 4 years. He amassed over 1,300 points in college. You know, I asked a couple coaches, since it's been 41 years, to go back, and I asked Coach Wersch, I said, what do you remember about Kevin as a player? And he said, well, I remember that he was such a ferocious rebounder. He said, I know one thing. He said, you didn't want to be anywhere near him when he brought down the rebound. You know, the rules kind of changed today, but back then when you were taught to rebound, you brought it down and you cleared. And anyone in your way was just kind of a casualty. And I remember a lot of guys hanging on him going up, but boy, when he hit the floor, guys did not want to be around him when he did his clear. And I also remember getting the Street and Smith catalog after his senior season, and looked up and he finished 12th in the nation in rebounding at 12.2. But I scrolled up and finishing 7th that year at 12.6 was a guy by the name of Dennis Rodman. So I think he was in pretty good rebounding company at that time. I asked Coach Short, I said, what do you remember about him? And Coach Short said, well, you know, I know he had such big numbers, but said he was such an unselfish player. He said he could have did anything he wanted to do, but he was so unselfish, he just wanted to win. And you know, I went back and looked at stats, and he also was second on his team in assists in high school, but even in college, even though he amassed 1,300 points, he also led the team in assists. He actually had a record at Wilmington College for 15 assists in one game that held up for a couple of years. So he was probably one of the better all-around players, I think, in Southwest Ohio. But you know, reading off all the stats, one thing that I admired about him that is after he graduated from college, that he was always willing to give back to Little Miami. And you know, I know whether my 7th grade coach, freshman coach, or varsity coach would ask him to come in and work with players, whether it be on shooting or post moves or whatever, he was always willing to give it his time. And so it's so great to see that. At this time, I would like to present my former player, my brother, Kevin Blanton.
Thank you. Why is it that the coach looks younger than the player? But I guess it's something for coaches and teachers. But great to see everyone here tonight. It's been a long time. It's great to see alumni. I would like to just thank the committee for the induction. I'd like to thank Little Miami Schools and Matt Lewis for this event. I'd like to recognize the people at my table tonight. My wife will celebrate 36 years in September. I only say that because she can't remember how many years and she doesn't know the date, so I'm just giving her a heads up. My 2 boys, Nick and Bryce, and their wives, Laura and Kelly, and my mom is in the house tonight. So. Most of you that play, I think play sports or do extracurricular activities, you know how important your parents are for you to get to events and things. And Mom always made sure we did. But there's one thing about Mom. Mom had a Friday night game face. And this is before there ever was such a thing as a game face talked about. So anytime during a game, if you were to look up into the stands, you would see my mom's game face. And this was it most of the time, but you know, it didn't stop her. She continued to come to every game and even my college games, and she still had the game face on. And at last, a teammate of mine is here tonight for my junior season. He's also my roommate in college, Colin Uffendale. He drove in last night from North Carolina, and Colin was one of the first people to call me when he saw the list go out. I pick up the phone, he said, hey, I just saw you got inducted to the Hall of Fame. He goes, isn't there a grade point average requirement? And I was like, well, thankfully not, because I'm here tonight. So, you know, I think during my time at Little Miami, I was very fortunate to have a great teaching staff and administrative staff around me. But there's two teachers that, for me, that I've had long-lasting relationships over the years, and I definitely need to point them out, and that is Mrs. Terry Berg, my French teacher, and Mr. Brance Stilley, my 5th grade teacher, for all their support and encouragement over the years. Also very blessed to have coaches from, from elementary through high school. And, I see one here tonight, Kenny Williams, my reserve basketball coach. Like he said, my freshman and sophomore year. I'd like to also say Pat Hines from my junior season. I think Pat coached from around 72 to 80. And I've talked to Pat recently, and then also my junior high coach, Coach Tiemann. There's some others here I'd like to recognize. Coach Gary Wersch. Gary actually wasn't coaching at the time, but Gary was doing what he's done for 40 years, and that's why he's being inducted into the Hall of Fame tonight, and that's supporting Little Miami athletics and student athletes. And I was really fortunate for Gary to really come on the scene during my senior season, and basically through my college years. Gary and I spent a lot of time watching basketball and a lot of time talking basketball. And Gary, I thank you for that time. And then also here tonight, Coach Mark Short. If you ask Coach Short, I think he's going to tell you that he started coaching in the mid-'80s. I actually believe that's wrong, because I think actually Coach Short started in the mid-'70s, he just doesn't know it. In the mid-'70s, he lived next to me, so he would always come over and help me. And I especially one summer, I think I spent the whole summer trying to shoot left-handed. I was wanting to shoot with my offhand, and he spent hours with me. And so therefore, I think I'm actually the one responsible for starting him in his career path. He just hasn't given me credit yet. But thank you, Coach Short. And at last, my brother coached me my senior season, but really that's where my love of basketball came from. And I would tell you probably in the late 60s, early 70s, my brother found an empty milk carton. And yes, I did say carton. Milk did come in a carton. It did come into a plastic container back in the 60s. But he found an empty milk container. He cut the bottom and the top out, grabbed a piece of tape, and put it on the door trim. And he went and found a rubber ball and tennis ball. And my mom, once again, is out of her game face. She heard tennis ball in the house. But he went and got the tennis ball. I think he got a pair of knee pads. And he started playing basketball. And from that point on, my brother started coaching me and actually helping me with my skills and team skills. And that's where my love of basketball came from. Once again, I credit myself for starting him in his career path. Only one problem with this. I thought the coaching would end when I graduated from college, only to find out that when we played in benefit games and would play in coaches' games, he was still coaching me. So I guess once a coach, always a coach. Couldn't get him to stop. So just in closing, I'd like to say congratulations to the other inductees. And for me, the best part about this is being back with all of you who bleed green and gold. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. At this time, I'd like to welcome